Socrates, a Greek philosopher credited as the founder of Western thought, emphasizing scrutiny and self-examination as the keys to a meaningful life. Confucius, a teacher of ethics and education, influencing Eastern views on morality present to this day. Galileo di Vincenzo Bonneuil, a pioneer of modern science, known for championing the model of Copernican heliocentrism. Waluigi. Throughout our history, there have been countless eggheads who've etched their names directly into how we see the world today. But do you know what even they couldn't figure out? That's right, the secret Krabby Patty formula for creating a video game that's truly immersive. Fast forward to the early 2000s, widely known as the golden age of scientific discovery, where one of the most impactful innovations was let off the leash and changed everything we knew about the modern world. The Nintendo GameCube, coming in hot with one of the greatest lineups of games 8-year-old me has ever seen. Wait, did you see that? Nintendo was going absolutely bananas with 3D in the late 90s and early 2000s. Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, Donkey Kong 64. It was only a matter of time before Metroid got in on the action. And in 2002, boom, Metroid Prime. This game was insane, farming ratings and accolades left and right, quickly becoming one of the most celebrated games in Nintendo's library, with its detailed, immersive world and just straight up fucking cool premise. So open up your ear holes, because I'm about to put some words inside of them about Metroid Prime Remastered. Metroid Prime takes place between the original Metroid and Metroid 2, and the story is pretty straightforward. Basically, after mopping up all the space pirates on Zebes, a really pretty girl named Samus intercepts a distress signal from a derelict space vessel orbiting a planet called Talon 4, which turns out to be full of space pirates killed by monsters genetically enhanced with a radioactive substance called Phazon. Samus fights one of these experiments, destroying the vessel in the process, forcing her to escape where she runs into her nemesis, Ridley, an alien space pirate dragon who is also a cyborg, before she bumps into a wall and loses literally all her powers. Because this is a Metroid game. Samus escapes from the ship and follows the dragon to Talon 4, where she learns that all of the planet's inhabitants, the Chozo, have been eradicated by the Phazon, which originated from a meteor impact 50 years ago and has slowly been corrupting the planet. The space pirates discovered this and got into a bunch of shenanigans, conducting biological experiments to strengthen their soldiers using a Phazon super soldier serum, but Samus shuts all that down lickety-split before going to the source of the corruption, the impact crater, and collecting 12 ancient artifacts to unlock the Chozo cipher put in place to contain the Phazon. Then a bunch of other stuff happens, and then everything blows up and she leaves. And the coolest part is that the game tells you none of that. Metroid Prime has no dialogue, no characters, and no expository cutscenes. The story is told primarily through the game's environments themselves, leaving it completely up to the player to discover all these things organically by exploring and interacting with the world. Verdant landscapes with perpetual rain, snow-covered valleys, magma caverns with fucking flame-breathing worms, modern-day Los Angeles. Every single area you explore is so unique and exciting, with an absolute bonkers amount of detail and thought implemented to create an atmosphere that feels authentic. Look at the way the rain drips off of Samus's visor and arm cannon, or the way Samus's face is reflected from an explosion's flash of light. Even the opening sequence is meaningful, giving your eyeballs a taste of what the inside of a Metroid looks like. There are so many cool things I can point out, like the intricate details of the different visors or the use of dynamic lighting, but there are plenty of other nerds who talk about those. What's most interesting is the fact that you experience all of this directly from Samus's perspective. This is so fucking cool. In so many other games, there is a clear delineation between you and the main character, but Metroid Prime completely obliterated those conventions and said, you are Samus. Just from a fundamental game design perspective, this was such a great decision. You as the player experience the entire game, from both a narrative and an interactive point of view, completely alongside the main character, making you feel like you are a small part of this expansive world. Like when a Metroid hops on and starts sucking your face off. Immersion. The atmosphere of Talon 4 is incredible, especially with the somber, ambient music that plays across the different areas. but an arguably even bigger piece of this game's immersion comes from the optional scanning you'll be doing as you progress through the story. If you're going for that tasty hundo, you're going to be using this mechanic a lot. What you learn and experience is based solely on how much emphasis you put on interacting with the environments. The more you do, the more you see just how much care went into building out the world. You might read about the Chozo's history, colonizing the planet before being killed off by the poison, or data logs that show how afraid the space pirates are of big bad Hunter Samus coming to finish the job for Metroid 1. My favorite is the report talking about the space pirates trying to recreate Samus's morph ball function in science class, completely destroying their bodies during the process of testing. Like, what? This form of storytelling works so well, assuming you can read, because you're obtaining information from the perspective of the people who are on this planet before you, which means you're someone in a world that existed before your own involvement, one where things happen outside of your influence. In a video game. Metroid Prime is a first-person adventure game, which means you'll be doing a lot of and also a lot of This is a Metroid game. It's a tale as old as time. 1986 to be precise. Samus will naturally get herself into some wacky and zany shenanigans, lose all of her powers, then have to explore the world to gain them back. The series as a whole prides itself on its ability to convey progression and growth, arguably more than any other franchise. You find yourself in a vast, expansive world, but without the ability to fully explore it, so the game consistently plants seeds, having you subconsciously take notice of areas to return to as you advance and expand your abilities. This is great game design, but for a game so focused on progressively exploring and re-exploring such a complex network of ecosystems, I wish there was just a bit more polish added to Samus's movement. Are these big issues? No, that would be the bosses. The bosses in Metroid Prime fucking suck. There really is no eloquent way to say this. How did Retro Studios take a game with some of the absolute coolest enemy and boss designs in the history of Nintendo and commit the biggest biff imaginable when it comes to their implementation? I mean, look at some of these designs. These are some serious heaters. But when I actually jumped into the fights, I was like, almost every single fight is effectively a puzzle, challenging you to figure out the boss's weaknesses and usually implementing a power-up you recently obtained, which is cool. The problem is, especially once you get to the late game, these fights drag on so painfully long, man. It's ridiculous. So many main bosses devolve to just being bullet sponges with complete invulnerability, spamming the same comically telegraphed 2 to 3 moves before giving you a tiny, little puny tiny window to deal some damage before going right back and repeating the cycle. This is so stupid. Thardus, this stupid idiot? You have to pop on your thermal visor, attack the weak point, which is blocked by the rest of its body almost the entire time, then switch back to your combat visor and continue attacking the same weak spot until he does his ball attack, wait until that's done, and then repeat the process like 9 more times. This guy takes fucking forever to kill. And most of the time, you're just sitting around, waiting until you can shoot. This is almost every main boss fight in Metroid Prime. Meta Ridley, they actually took 4 of the literal coolest things ever, space, pirates, dragons, and robots, and combined it into one entity. Such an incredibly designed antagonist for Samus with insane powers and bonkers battle theme. So why? Why is it literally the slowest and most boring boss fight in the entire game? His one weak point is his chest, which you can attack while he's hovering around the battlefield. But of course, he has a whole move where he flies off for 28 full actual seconds and you can't hit him at all until he comes back and repeats the pattern. But, hold on. Now we have a phase 2. Alright, now we're talking my language. Is what I would say if it wasn't the worst part of the entire game for me. He's down to like a quarter of his health, and all of a sudden, you literally do absolutely no damage to him. Like, at all. He takes no damage to his health until you pop him enough times in the mouth where he shows his weak spot again. And when you blast him with a super missile, it does... Now what if I told you can play this goo goo gaga preschool baby game, but it takes twice as long? Hard mode. Once you complete the game on normal difficulty, you unlock hard mode, where enemies deal double damage to you and conversely take half damage from you. So that 10-minute Thardus fight, I don't want to talk about it. Finally, that brings us to the backtracking. Okay, listen, I get it. Backtracking is a staple part of the series, and on paper works so well in showcasing your progression as you play through the game. You return to early areas with new abilities, allowing you to expand the map and unlock new areas. This is the essence of Metroid. But the problem is the sheer amount of time it takes to move from one area to another. Not even mentioning how all enemies respawn once you move 2 rooms away, which made going back to find hidden items much less fun. So if you're like me, who threw hands with the Omega Pirate in the Phazon Mines and backtracked all the way back to the Talon overworld, only to realize I forgot a goddamn missile upgrade a couple rooms from the boss fight, backtrack back to get that, then backtrack back again, you'd feel like an idiot who wasted 30 minutes of his day doing... And don't forget about those 12 Chozo artifacts you have to find before you can beat the game. Metroid Prime is a relatively short game to 100%, and the rewards, in my humble opinion, are actually pretty cool. Completion in this game is essentially broken up between item collection and logbook entries, from exploring and scanning literally everything in the entire game. No items in the game are missable, so if you miss a power-up or upgrade, you can activate your backtracking skill and wander the map to eventually find it. Outside of Samus's standard power-ups, like the different arm cannon beams and power suits, there are 49 missile expansions that allow you to carry a max of 250 missiles, 14 energy tanks that result in a max HP of 1500, and 4 power bomb expansions that let you carry a total of 8 power bombs. And the best part is that there's no way to keep track of the ones you collect. Scans, however, are a completely different story. For some low intelligence build reason, various points of progression fully lock out certain entries from being obtained during that playthrough. Some of these limited edition scans make sense, like the main bosses of the game for example. But I want you to explain to me why this dumbass Ice Shriekbat disappears forever after I obtain the thermal visor. You better believe I missed it during my first playthrough, and sweat pretty hard to find it during my second. There are 133 scans in the game, I think, broken up between pirate data, Chozo lore, creatures, and research. But the good news is that all scans carry over through your complete file, meaning you won't have to repeat any scans you already have when you boot up a new game plus. Endings! Metroid Prime has 3 endings, each one adding on to the last based off of your item completion percentage. Less than 75% item completion results in the shortest ending, where the final scene of the artifact temple is cut off prematurely, locking you out of watching the full scene. 75% to 99% item completion shows the entire artifact temple scene, where Metroid Prime pulls off the biggest plot twist in the history of gaming by revealing that Samus is actually a beautiful lady? What? And 100% item completion results in the complete ending, where an additional scene will play after the mission final results screen. You're gonna want 100% the game. More good news! There really isn't any need to play through the game separately to experience these endings, since watching the 100% ending will cover all of the content across all 3 criteria. All of these milestones culminate in unlocking various elements of the game's extras, containing 185 items across a concept gallery featuring concept art of the biology and world from both the original and remastered games, a character gallery showcasing interactable 3D models of Samus's suits and the various enemies and bosses you defeat throughout the game, and a soundtrack gallery, which is self-explanatory. In order to unlock every extra, you will need to complete the game on both normal and hard difficulties, collect 100% of the game's items, and scan 100% of the game's logbook entries. So if you're looking for a game that you have to play all the way through twice in order to 100%, then boy do I have a recommendation for you. Metroid Prime Remastered is the unquestionable, definitive way to play this game. All of the visuals and controls are completely revamped from the original, which makes all of the original aspects faithfully translated shine even brighter. The amount of depth put into the environments and the mechanics used to interact with them is honestly incredible. The world manages to feel real, despite being so far removed from reality, telling an inspired story in a way that conveys the developer's trust in the player, and bringing us along for the ride to the extent that very few other games can. It's one of those games that are so gripping, so effortlessly immersive that hours will go by without you even realizing it, and I couldn't recommend it more, especially to those who never experienced it in the early 2000s. 9 out of 10, overpowered game. Let me speak to the manager who created the boss fights, please.